So you have secret coffee runs and secret coffee funds, and sometimes you'll pay out extra money of your own just to keep
Just to
people
go.
going with a little extra
So
coffee.
do you send like the assistant, or there's like an assigned person
I
that
go
goes and get
myself,
you go
you know.
yourself? Let's forget this. I'm going.
Hello.
So,
Hello, Deborah.
all right, I'm so excited, guys. So, welcome to Beans, Brews, and Brains. This is a new series that I'm rolling out and that will complement my coffee brand. I am Deborah Cablong, founder and owner of Canfuela Cafe. And today we have our first guest, which is Susan Cartsonis. She is a film producer and the co-founder of Resonate Entertainment, based out of Los Angeles. So just to give you guys a quick rundown, we are going to be talking about all things coffee, of course, and just the role that coffee plays in our lives, the life of Susan here today, and the relationship between coffee and the creative lifestyle and professional life. So I plan to have different guests every month, and today we are starting with Susan. So I'm really excited. I don't want to have a really, really long introduction, but I want to go ahead and just jump right in. First, to give you a little bit more background about Susan, I have a little professional bio that I stole off your website that I'm going to read, and then in your and then in your own words, you can tell us a little bit more if there's something like important that I left out. But all right, so as I mentioned, Susan is a film producer and the co-founder of Resonate Entertainment. She is, according to the Hollywood Reporter, they have named her one of the top 5 grossing producers of the year 2000, I believe, for What Women Want. And it was the highest grossing romantic comedy of all time. I'm sure if you're into film and movies, especially romantic comedies, you've probably seen it. I know I have. More recently, she has produced for Netflix, including True Spirit, Feel the Beat, which my kids love. And with Amazon, she produced Sitting in Bars with Cake. And it premiered, yeah, right behind her. It premiered in September 2023 with her Resonate partners. And if you have not the chance to see that one, I really highly recommend it. Get your tissues ready. You will cry. You will laugh. It's just an amazing film. So, all right, Susan, anything you want to share with us before we get started?
Only about sitting in bars with cake. We love books and we love coffee, and it's a movie that has it has
Yeah,
it's
right.
based on a cookbook actually, and
Okay.
the cake goes with coffee, so it's really an important aspect of it. But yeah, it's great to see you, and thank you
Yeah,
for
great
having
to
me.
see you. Yeah, you're welcome. Just quick background. Maybe I should mention that we know each other. So I've known Susan for uh, several years now. She was part of the part-time faculty at the grad school program that I went to in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And she's been very supportive of all alumni and current students. She's just an amazing person to know. And when I launched my coffee business, she was one of the first people to like really, really share. And I'm pretty sure when we open a brick and mortar, her family will be like, "We're here!" Like, so I'm so excited. She's been great. So I really, you are one of the first person that I thought to invite. So thank you so much for accepting my invitation to be part of this new project that I'm doing.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, what's better than a cup of coffee and a good book? It's like they go hand in hand.
Hand in
You
hand. Exactly. All right. So I'm just going to ask her some questions and we're just going to have a conversation about coffee and the creative life and film, of course. So just hang tight and have fun with us. So let me start. The first question I have is just a fun little brand teaser. When was, do you recall the first time you drank coffee? Like when you started drinking coffee?
Oh my gosh. I don't know when I first drank coffee, but I've been aware of coffee since I was an infant because every morning I would wake up to the smell of coffee that
Mm-hmm.
my parents would make. And then I would watch my parents drink coffee and read the newspaper, usually the New York Times, and read articles to each other. In my early childhood, and I'm dating myself here, there would be and cigarettes. And as the
Yeah.
day went on, my mother would have red lipstick, which I'm wearing right now, and it would stain the rim of her coffee cup, and she'd have a cigarette, and she'd be talking to her friends as she's sipping coffee, smoking a cigarette, and chatting about things.
Mm-hmm.
And so coffee and the smell of coffee is something that's just embedded deeply into my sort of every into my psyche, into my memories, into my feeling of being at
Mm-hmm.
home, of waking up, and of what home smells like. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really important scent. As far as drinking coffee, I probably tried, coffee. I probably snuck a sip here and there and didn't like it much older, and then needed it for to stay awake in
Mm-hmm.
college. But I've always loved the smell. The smell is so amazing and evocative. And then when you finally smell
Yes.
beans being freshly ground
Oh
at
yeah.
my cousin Stanley's house, he always had a little Braun
A,
coffee grinder,
a
electric,
grinder.
and he would grind the coffee fresh. Or my Aunt Zena and Uncle Brad always ground their beans fresh. My parents had a can of already ground coffee. They had 5 kids.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to grind the
They didn't have
beans.
time to grind it.
No, but my Uncle Brad and my Aunt Zena always ground the beans, and my cousin Stanley did too. So that scent of freshly ground beans is also
Mm-hmm.
a part of it. It's like deeply embedded in my.
Embedded in your.
It's a wonderful smell. It's
It
just a
is.
fantastic smell. And then I'm just like giving you random coffee memories.
Oh, we
In
love it.
recent
We're here for
in
it.
recent years, I'm half Greek, and I went to a Greek grocery store in Los Angeles called Papa Christo's. And there's been an influx of people who are Greek Orthodox, but who are from, I believe, Ethiopia and possibly Somalia, who buy
Mm-hmm.
their stuff and buy their coffee and buy other things at the Greek store because they're part
Okay.
of the Greek Orthodox community. And so the store has, I don't know if the store always supplied green coffee beans, but I noticed them for the first time along with where they keep the teff, which they never had
Mm.
previously to having African customers. And
Mm-hmm.
so I bought some of the green beans and I brought them home, and I tried
You try to pan
roasting
roast it.
them, and then I tried grinding them while they were still warm, and they tasted like, pardon my French, shit. And they were horrible.
It was
So
a
I went
disaster.
disaster. So when I've done something terribly wrong, so I thought I need to consult my expert, the internet. This was before I
Right.
knew you, or I would have called you, Deborah. And I went online, and they said never grind your coffee when it's warm. You have to let the beans
Let it
cool. It's
cool.
wrong. It affects the flavor. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that, and they tasted wonderful. And I went, oh my god, I learned something.
You
First
learn
of all, that
something.
you can make your own beans. Second of
Right.
all, if you let them cool, they taste entirely different than if you
Different.
grind them
Mm-hmm.
warm. That was so interesting to me. So I learned a little coffee lesson that day. But I
Yeah.
have many more coffee tales, including my journey today, which was
Oh, let's hear it.
it was like a coffee disaster this morning, Deborah. I mean, I wish you'd been here. But I woke up this morning. I have this fancy pants Breville espresso maker that I use every morning, and I make what I can only describe as a protein coffee because I put some protein in it. But it's delicious because the coffee is generally really really good. And the computer went out, and it started flashing lights at me, and
Uh-oh.
it happened like 2 months ago. I had to send the whole machine in and bubble wrap in a big box and spend a lot of money to have it repaired. It's under
Mm.
warranty. To have it go crazy on me again really was not a
And you
good
just got
feeling.
it fixed.
I just got it fixed. So I immediately, in preparation for tomorrow, I filled a big pitcher with cold water and put grounds into that pitcher so that I can make cold brew at
Cold
least.
brew.
I could make
Mm-hmm.
drip coffee, but it's hot this time
Yeah.
of year. So
No, it's too hot right now.
and
I'm drinking iced coffee right now.
You are. I'm
Ice pour
drinking water
over.
right now, but I really want coffee. I would really prefer to be drinking coffee. Iced coffee is the best. And then and then I have a house guest, and she was able to get the machine to work for one
To work.
shot. So that at least got me awake
Oof.
enough that
At
I could
least one
drive.
shot.
I know my brain doesn't function without it. So I got to my breakfast, which was about 15 minutes away, and I had like 3 cups of coffee, which is probably why I'm talking so fast now.
Hey, you make the best first guess. Okay, you are setting the tone. Setting the tone.
Coffee thing, and I have to call Breville after I get off with you and say, "Oh, I just had this coffee machine fixed. How could you do this?" I'm seriously thinking about going back to my old espresso maker, which had no computer in it. It's just
Hmm.
a mechanical
Just straight.
machine.
Hmm.
Maybe just drip
Especially
coffee
for the
again.
morning coffee. For the morning coffee, you just want to like get it going. Nothing complicated, and then you can
No,
keep the fancy stuff for later in the day, like your second or third cup.
but I don't want to have to I don't want to have to depend on a computer. This is really, really serious business. This is serious stuff.
Very. We need some. We need a solution here.
We
French press.
need.
I always tell people French press is your best friend, but it's very strong stuff. Like you have to be really.
I don't know. I might be ready for it. I might be
You
ready
think?
for it. I just have to be sure not to drink it before I go to the doctor and have my blood pressure taken because apparently I'm very, very sensitive to
Sensitive
caffeine.
to caffeine. Mm-hmm.
And they think that I have high blood pressure if I drink coffee before I go have that
Oh,
test, but I don't. I have low blood
yeah.
pressure.
We need to get that under control. No, I would not. I am not advising her to doctor. If you're listening to this, I am not. I should put at the beginning of the show disclaimer. Please consult your doctor before consuming anything we suggest here.
Or I would say measure how much your cup actually holds because I have in my life given myself an arrhythmia by drinking like 6 or 7 cups a day and thinking I
Oh,
was only drinking 2 cups a day.
that is a
And
lot of
my
coffee.
doctor sent me to the cardiologist. I told you I'm really sensitive to this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
she sent me to the cardiologist, and I had to do like a stress test, but I'd gone completely off caffeine before I went to the cardiologist because I thought if I have a heart problem, I shouldn't be on caffeine.
Oh,
So I get to the
correct.
cardiologist, and she looks at me and she goes, "There's nothing wrong with your heart. You're just super sensitive to coffee. Maybe
Mm,
like instead of six
just
cups
let's go
and
with one or two. One or two, maybe. And also, I always tell people like sometimes if you find like coffee that really gets you going, you might only need one or well, maybe two to three cups versus drinking coffee that's not very strong, I guess I should say. Exactly. Then you find yourself drinking like 7 cups. But that's also another way to, fresh coffee always does the trick, in my opinion.
well, I'm not arguing with you. I'm 100%. I've learned how to modulate my caffeine intake, but I'm still very coffee dependent. Maybe more so than before.
Than before. We're going backwards. All right, let's move on to my next question. So, do you have any favorite coffee shops or cafes in LA?
There's so many good ones. I have a favorite one around the corner from me in Santa Monica Canyon on West Channel Road. They pulled an Airstream trailer into a lot that has a couple of
Hmm.
little boutiques that have sprung up. And we had no really good coffee in the neighborhood that was walkable. And now it's
Okay.
become a destination. So it's the Airstream. I think it's called Canyon Coffee
Kenyan coffee.
around the corner in Santa Monica Canyon. And it's become a gathering place. Sometimes you see somebody sort of famous there, very
Hmm.
famous there. But it doesn't matter. Everybody just sort of shows
Everybody
up
just
and
have
drinks their
coffee and
delicious
drinks.
coffee. Yeah, it's great.
Nice.
They make all
Ha-
sorts of fancy coffees and their regular coffee.
And the regular
Um,
coffee.
delicious too.
Into it's not a coffee shop. It's more like a French. Since we were talking about French before we started recording, French places and French culture. There's in Burbank. There's a French cafe called Lou the French on the Block. Have you heard? Oh
No,
no! Oh my God! You
sorry.
must check him
Thank
out.
you. far away from me, so I
Yeah, it's
have,
far. It's closer to. Well,
yeah.
if you're ever on that side, you should check it out. Lou the French on the Block. He's from Paris. I went there the first time maybe like 5 years ago when he first opened, and he's gotten a lot of media attention lately. So that's really great for him. But it's a cool place if you're ever in the area and want something French. That's
I
your guy.
always want something French. Are you saying that you believe French coffee is better than
No,
other coffee
not necessarily coffee, just the pastries. I
pastries?
I don't think French coffee. I hope nobody, my French people, please don't come
Jump
for
on
me.
it.
Don't come
Yeah.
for me. But I don't think French coffee is necessarily better. I do not. I think maybe before when I got really before I got into coffee, but they kind of roast their coffees differently. Most of them are really dark roast versus here in the States we like the medium roast. And they a lot of shops also use a different, like we use Arabica coffee. A lot of the popular French cafes in Paris, for example, they use Robusta. So the culture is a little bit different, but in some places you'll find really good coffee. But generally speaking, I think it's just comparing, like the cultures are different, so it's hard to compare. Like as
Also,
far as
also, I'm sorry to interrupt,
no, it's okay.
but I was just thinking, we're so in love with a big cup of coffee, like a big
I was just
frothy.
about to say that the portions are very
It's
different.
like this size would be considered like just perfect for an iced coffee, right? And it's
Yeah. And they're
don't
like,
you
oh no, this is perfect for coffee. Small size.
too
Yeah,
big? Too-
exactly.
And I always, my heart falls a little bit, but it always tastes delicious. It's just, I can't get it to last as long as I want it to last. You can't walk around the block with a cup of coffee and take a stroll. It would last for
Yeah.
20 seconds, you know, down their espresso and say, okay, I've had my medicine. So it's a different,
Now I'm good to go. So
yeah, exactly.
since we're
Yeah, go
talking
ahead.
about sizes and brewing methods, so is there a specific kind of coffee that you prefer? Like, for example, like you like espressos, lattes. Okay, we know you
I,
French press is
I
not a
No, I love espresso, but I think I'm going
okay.
to learn how to love French press because I'm listening to you. You're the coffee expert. Recommending French press. It's
I
low
am.
tech. I don't have to worry about a computer telling me whether I can have my coffee in the morning or not, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting very impatient about, you
Right.
know, Revel. I've been such a loyal coffee maker user for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And I'm just bummed about this machine.
This
It's
one.
supposed
Mm-hmm.
that it went out on me a second time right after it came back from the shop. But so I'm thinking lower tech is the way to go, which is
Mm-hmm.
the cold brew way, is the drip way. But French
Right.
press is kind of classic, and it just requires that you
It's
have.
just French breath and water and your coffee.
I can do this. I
You
can do this.
can, yes.
You're just gonna have to recommend what bean and what grind. It's
Okay.
is it a
It's a
coarse? It's a
coarse
coarse
grind. It's a
grind,
coarse grind. You can go
and
to that the shop that you mentioned earlier that sells coffee. I'm sure they sell also whole bean, right? And not just green coffee
no,
or fresh
I'm gonna buy
coffee. No.
no, I'm gonna buy it from you. Why would I go
Oh,
to
hey.
another
Shipped straight from the source, right? Okay, sounds
That's
good.
right. I want the real thing.
The real thing. All right, let's keep it going. All right, let's move on a little bit into more of the creative process in combination with coffee. So, for most creatives, coffee is like a big coffee and tea. I would say coffee and tea are like a big requirement to get the creative process going. As you mentioned earlier, you need your boost to really like get your day going. So as far as you, how does coffee really help you focus or brainstorm or relax? Surprisingly, it made me think of a story. I have a customer who um, he told me that coffee makes him sleep. I have never heard that before. Like he was the first person I've ever met that told me, no, when I buy coffee, it's to help me sleep because he can't fall asleep unless he drinks coffee. I said, that is crazy. That's like the
Oh,
opposite of most
I
people. For
I
most
know.
people, we need
Yeah,
to
the
focus and wake
caffeine,
up and
the caffeine sort of jacks people up so that they feel awake and
mm-hmm.
they're function. My mother was that way. I can't believe it because I'm obviously the opposite. I've managed
Right.
to give palpitations, and if I drink coffee after 1 p.m., I am
That's
up
it.
until 2 a.m. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm super sensitive to it. But my mother used to be able to drink a cup of coffee before she went to bed. It did not
It did not
affect
affect
her
her.
ability. No, it was very relaxing for her, but she was always drinking coffee, so maybe she just got immune to it. I don't know.
Maybe that could be it too.
And it's also, it's medicinal coffee. The experts on Parkinson's disease say a cup of
Mm-hmm.
coffee to 2 cups of coffee a day delays the onset or lessens the effects of the disease. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really, I think it's a really important drug. I mean, it's an important drug for me, that's for sure.
So, as far as filmmaking, how do you think that coffee contributes to the culture of filmmaking in Los Angeles, where you're based?
Well, when you get a job in Los Angeles as somebody right out of college, the first thing they want you to do if
Just
you're
get them coffee.
you're a writer's assistant in a on a television show, if you're
Mm-hmm.
working with an agency, you have to know how the coffee maker works because you have
Yeah,
to always offer coffee and be able to make coffee. And there's some people who sort of bristle at the idea that they're just coffee makers. They want to be,
more
appreciated for
than
their
that. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I say do whatever job you have to the best degree you can, and then people are going to engage you in conversation. And especially if you're handing them a cup of deliciously brewed coffee, you have
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to
You have an
engage in
opportunity there.
conversation.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
So it's not just a TV thing, right? Because in movies we see that a lot. So it's actually real.
In film too, in television, in the world of television show creation, the
Mm-hmm.
people who are assisting in the office
Mm-hmm.
always
Mm-hmm.
make coffee. Everybody kind of makes coffee. When I was an executive, I would make coffee. I didn't stand on ceremony. I didn't think only the assistants should make coffee. I want to make sure also the coffee maker's clean. So I want to
Yeah,
inspect, if
important.
it's got a filter, I want to make sure that the grounds haven't been sitting there and they haven't gotten, God forbid, moldy or
Yeah.
gross. I actually like to clean that plastic receptacle every
Mm-hmm.
few uses. I don't like to let it go on for weeks and weeks without having it washed because I think the oils build up and that it actually hurts the flavor unless you get everything cleaned out really well.
Absolutely.
I want the carafe clean. I don't want a reused. You can reuse a carafe during one day, but I want all that residue that sometimes burns at the bottom. I want it all cleaned out. I want a fresh
Mm-hmm.
glass carafe at the end. So I'm really adamant about, I clean all of I have different kinds of coffee makers. I have a great big at home. I have a great big, for banquet, one of those
Oh,
percolator coffee makers. I do have a French press.
I
I
see.
do
Look
have
at you. You have your stash. A true
But
coffee lover, ladies and gents.
I come by this interview honestly. I love coffee, and I also love the different ways that it tastes. Cold brew is entirely different from, you know, um, drip, etc. But
Exactly.
it's very much an important rite of passage when you enter the entertainment business. If you're going to be if you're climbing up the food chain as an executive or an assistant. I started as an assistant. You have to make a good cup of coffee, and if you can remember how people like their coffee and just bring it to them, um,
They'll
people will
remember
remember.
you.
You're good at your coffee, you might be good at other things, and you start to be
Right.
asked your opinion. You engage about material. You start
Okay.
to
That's
make
good.
yourself invaluable in a lot of ways, and you don't. I think it's really important never to be resentful
Mm-hmm.
about making coffee because
Making
I think
coffee.
making coffee and delivering coffee is a gift, and it's a
It
wonderful
is.
hospitality incredible thing to do. It allowed me to carry on when I was working at a literary agency at the very beginning of my career. It allowed me to carry on conversations with authors,
Conversations. Exactly.
ask some questions about themselves. They would ask me
Hmm.
questions. They would get a sense of who I was as a person. And that allowed
Hmm.
me to get promoted and find other jobs and
Hmm.
climb the Hollywood food chain. But it's also a way of connecting. Um, I'm probably giving you a longer answer than you wanted, but
No,
this
I love
morning
it. This is what I want.
we had a meeting with a wonderful writer. She's so talented, and she creates these amazing shows for Netflix, and she's also a screenwriter. And what did we
Okay.
connect over? You know, how did we start the day? It was over cups of
Coffee. I love that. I love
she
that.
drank, she drank what I will describe, and I always describe as writer's coffee, which is black coffee.
Oh,
Nothing else, just the
just
pure
black.
stuff. I
Hmm.
always add milk because I'm a wuss. You know, I have to have.
It's baby steps, baby steps. I mean, before I started roasting coffee, I always put sugar and milk, and that's just but little by little because as a roaster, I have to be able to taste the coffee, and then it just happened naturally. One day, I was able to just drink it black, and now if I even try to put sugar, even if the coffee's bad, for example, I'm going out to eat to I don't know some restaurant hotels, for example. And usually the coffee is really bad, but I can't put sugar or milk. I would still chug it. I just, once you go black,
Yeah,
you
once
never
you go
go
black,
back.
you never go back.
That applies to coffee, okay?
I've heard the expression, never in this context, but thank you for admitting
You're
that.
so welcome. I just had
Coffee
to. It fit the
life.
context.
How could you resist? It was there, and you had to go there.
I had
But
to.
you know, I like coffee in all its forms. I try. Uh, I challenge myself to drink it with and without milk, and I just consider it a different beverage.
Hmm.
You know, so if
Yeah,
I'm
it's
drinking it
different.
with protein powder, which I sometimes do, which is probably considered an abomination by an aficionado like you. But but if I do that in the morning just to sort of get my
Get your
protein,
day going. Hmm.
it's actually delicious and tasty, and it's sort of more dessert-like
Hmm.
in its taste. But I also can appreciate a cup of black coffee, and I
Hmm.
can also appreciate a cup of coffee with a little bit of frothed milk. I never deliberately put sugar in, but I like it in all of its forms.
All
You
of its
know, it
form, yeah. Like espressos, lattes. I love them sweet, for example. I love my lattes or iced lattes with, syrups. So that I won't even lie. So it just depends on how you're brewing it and your mood. There are
is
so many different ways to enjoy coffee. That's the beauty in coffee.
well. The also the Oh, it depends on where you are in the world too. When I
Hmm.
went to visit many years ago, visit my relatives in Greece, they would brew the coffee in these little pots, and they'd basically bubble it, and it would become incredibly strong, a little
Mm.
bit bitter, but delicious. And then they'd strain it, not strain it, but just pour it into a cup,
Pour it
and
into a
they
cup.
drink it very sweet with in a tiny cup with probably 2 cubes of sugar. But that's the way in Greece
Hmm.
and also in Turkey. It's is the that very kind of syrupy coffee. And on a hot day when you're feeling lethargic, it really gives a kick in the pants when when it's been brewed that way and with that little extra sugar. I would
Extra sugar.
probably not think of drinking it that way here, but
Hmm.
when in Greece or when in France, you know,
You adapt
why
to
not?
the culture and how they drink it exactly. That's what's
Yeah.
cool. Really
I
cool.
know I know you're asking me the questions, but when you go to the Congo, how do people drink coffee there?
Very good and interesting question because coffee is not part of the culture whatsoever in Congo. I know, it's crazy. It's like we produce coffee, but it's not consumed. Like like tea,
Wow.
for example. And so when people do drink coffee, they have instant coffee like Nescafe. Instant,
No.
yeah, that's how they, that's how they drink coffee. They just drink instant coffee and then it's full of sugar and and then they put half of it is milk and it's like there was no coffee to begin with. Now there's like nothing left. Either that or, for example, coffee is the drink that's known as, it's not known as a drink that, something that you drink to enjoy. Like tea, for example, is more so we need to wake up, or for some, in some cultures, like part of my family, it's a funeral drink. For example, if they're at a wake and they're going to be there all night, and so they would get, for example, the same thing like, Nescafe or whatnot, and boil it in water in a huge pot and pass it around to everyone so that people can stay awake, which most of the time it doesn't really do anything, but that's a little bit of how it's consumed. I feel like now it's little by little, the culture is a little bit changing, but for the most part, it's instant coffee, milk, and yeah, that's how they that's how they drink it.
It makes me a little bit sad inside. I'd like to think that you'll go back at some point and brew them such an amazing cup
You
of
know what? I
tea.
actually did. I actually did a couple of years ago. I lost an uncle, and we had, awake, and everyone was, trying to stay awake. And of course, Deborah came through with the coffee. I had whole beans in my mocha pie, and I would just grind it. And I was the coffee lady. So every time I would come, to like, oh, she's here. Okay, yeah, we're gonna drink some good coffee. So we had a good time with my family, with me making good coffee. But they were like, "What? Why is this coffee so different?" And I had to like slowly explain. And that was before I launched, my coffee brand. But that trip had really, it was full circle moment, because it kind of helped me to really launch my brand. But it was a good moment. So
It's
little
amazing
by little, the culture will change, hopefully.
for sure. You're bringing it back to where it
Where
started.
it came from, where it started.
Exactly.
All right, thanks for asking. All right, going back to the culture of coffee and just filmmaking. Let's dive a little bit deeper into your career. So, I'd like to know, since you've been in the business for a long time, and I'm sure we have listeners here who might be interested in knowing how you got started. You mentioned that you worked at a literary agency at first, and you were an executive, and kind of briefly talk to us about your journey, as well as I want to know, like, what's the difference between when you first started in film versus today, with Netflix and Amazon, and everything has changed in the industry. So just a little bit overview, just so we can get an idea.
Well, everything has changed and it continues to change. It's
Mm-hmm.
evolving and changing. Methods of delivering movies, and I work mostly in long form or feature films,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're on streaming platforms or whether they're released by studios. But I have done some television as well, mostly in the long form, and I'm about
Mm-hmm.
to embark on a series project, which I'm really excited about.
Jill Scott, or was that
Oh,
a movie?
I have one that I'm so excited about that we're planning to make next spring called Cowgirl's Last Ride. And it stars Gina Davis, Jill Scott, Scoot McNairy,
Yeah.
and Julia Sweeney, who's an old friend of mine. And the director is Lena Yadav, who lives in Mumbai. She's Indian, South Asian, and
Nice.
an amazing filmmaker. She made a really beautiful movie about three women in Rajasthan called Parched, and it's the longest playing Indian film ever in Paris, France. I say that to you as somebody who's lived in France and it won a big award at the Stockholm Film Festival. It opened
Okay.
the Toronto Film Festival. She's a super talented director. So we're really looking forward to making that film with her. And it's about a renegade woman who basically escapes, Gina, played by Gina Davis, who basically escapes from a nursing facility where she's being kept. And hot on her tail is her son, played by Scoot
Mm-hmm.
McNair, as she's trying to get back home. And Jill
Mm-hmm.
Scott is a woman who helps her along the way. They help each other actually, and
Okay.
they have this incredible friendship and relationship. So it could be really funny and moving, and I can't wait to make it. So
Sounds interesting. I can't wait. And that's scheduled for, is it for one, Netflix, Amazon, or for the
we
theaters?
don't have our distributor
Not yet.
identified
Okay.
yet, but we're hoping to soon, and we're hoping to launch it at a film festival. But first, we have to make it, and
You
that
have to
will
make
happen.
it. Yeah. So okay, let's talk about that. Let's go back to my question. Sorry, I got excited because I just remembered the post you have posted about it. So all right, let's go back to your journey.
Okay, okay. What to know, Deborah? I'll tell you anything.
Everything. All right.
Every
So just okay. So you told us a little bit about the difference with how things are now. Everything is changing with Netflix and how things were before. So I guess
yeah.
let's start with after you left the literary agency. What was your? How did you get to where you are now? So you were an executive.
I was an executive. Well, I made a little pit stop in grad school. I got a master's in dramatic writing, which is screenwriting and playwriting, and I did
Mm-hmm.
that at NYU. My undergrad was UCLA. And after graduate school, I started reading scripts for 20th Century Fox, which
Okay.
meant that I read the screenplays and I would assess them and appraise them and say whether I thought they should be movies or not.
Okay.
And often I would read books and I would
Mm-hmm.
appraise them as well. And I would say whether I thought that a book could be a commercial film. And
Mm-hmm.
the people at Fox who were more senior to me liked my way of expressing myself, like the speed by which I was able to give them answers, and thought that I was giving the right answers, and they promoted me and they made me a
Okay.
junior executive. And then I worked at Fox for about 10 years making movies. I was involved in about 20 of them, maybe over 20 of them. One of them was Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Mm-hmm.
which was a little movie, but it launched a big
Big.
franchise of
Yeah.
television.
Television. Mm-hmm.
That was very exciting. And then after being an executive, I wanted to get my hands dirty. I wanted to do more hands-on work on films and be more involved in the mechanics of film. Because when you're an executive, what you do is you sort of shepherd the film from afar. You make sure that there's a really good, smart team working on the film. You make sure the script is in great shape
Mm-hmm.
before it starts getting, before the shooting starts. And you make sure that the marketing and everything is in place, but you're not there on the set every day. You're entrusting
Mm-hmm.
that to other people. And I thought it'd be fun to be on the set. I
Mm-hmm.
had a couple of experiences where I was able to be helpful to the producers, and one of the producers encouraged me to pursue producing. I'd already done everything that I could do as an executive, and I thought I
Right.
need a
You need
challenge.
more. Mm-hmm.
So I built a company for some television producers, and that's when I made What Women Want and also Where the Heart Is. What Women
Mm-hmm.
Want was a line pitch from these super talented writers, Yespa and Goldsmith. They created the TV show The King of Queens, um, uh,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
and along with Michael Whitehorn, they're great. They're great writers, and they weren't a couple when they came to us, but they later became a couple,
Became a
which is.
couple.
And then Where the Heart Is was a book-based project. It was a wonderful book by an Oklahoma author who wrote her first book at the age of 52, and
Wow.
she's no longer with us, but her son Tracy Letts is a super famous playwright and a wonderful actor. He was on, among other things, Homeland. They are an amazing family, and um, working on that project. It was a book I loved so much and was sent to me by a literary agent named Lisa
AJ.
Calamaro, who had handpicked the book for me. She said, I think this is your taste. I think you'll
Mm-hmm.
love this book. And I did love the book. And we, I worked with Babalu Mandel and Lowell Gans, who wrote Splash, among other amazing commercial comedies. They wanted to write something from a female perspective. Most all of my movies are from a female perspective or
Okay.
represent a female perspective in some way, because we're very much underrepresented in the
Right.
film business. And I feel like it's really important to have gender parity in
Mm-hmm.
storytelling, because women and girls need to see themselves represented. We can't always identify
Absolutely.
with the guys. And I also
Yes.
have the theory that we're women lead because we are naturally inclusive. We're the people who make sure everybody's taken care of in society, in
Mm-hmm.
families, etc. Where we lead, I believe that other inclusion follows, and I think that gender parity is a really good step in terms of getting all kinds of inclusion. So, which includes, racial inclusion and disability inclusion and LGBTQ plus inclusion, and just sort of inviting everybody to the party of storytelling, which
Mm-hmm.
is best thing in the world. And
Yes.
so I tried very hard to do that in all the work that I do. So there were 3 movies I made during that time of building the company, or developed. And another one was Mistress of Spices, which Gurinder Chadha, who made Bend It Like Beckham and Blinded by the Light. She's a South Asian British
Mm-hmm.
filmmaker and a dear friend. Her husband directed it. She produced, and I executive produced. That was really exciting. It was an immigrant's tale of an Indian woman who lives in Oakland, California, who has a spice shop, and there's some magical realism in it. It's a really beautiful
What is
movie
the name of the movie?
called Mistress of Spices. It's based on the
Mistress of the
book by
Spices.
Chitra Bruni,
I'll have to check that
and
one out.
Where the Heart is by Billy Letts, and
Mm-hmm.
I love looking for books when possible. Um, so
That was one of my
uh,
questions, so you've just answered it. Like, how do you
yeah,
go about selecting which movie to produce?
I've been lucky when books have come to me and they've been sort of mine to work with. It's always a really wonderful experience. I also made a children's movie after I left the company that I helped build. I started producing on my own through my company, Storefront Pictures. And I made a movie called Aquamarine with a
Mm-hmm.
wonderfully talented female director named Elizabeth Allen. And that became kind of a kids classic because nobody was doing people weren't doing a lot of live action youth oriented movies, and it's embedded with a lot of things that were important to Liz and are important to me as well. And that was based on an Alice Hoffman novella that was quite different in tone from the ultimate movie, but had some of the original sort of. I guess I'd describe it as melancholy that's in the story. Alice is such a wonderful author, and it was a really beautiful novella, and the movie has given back to me. I know because when I meet 20-something-year-old women, most of them cite it as one of their favorite first movies, and that is
Oh,
enormously gratifying to me.
that is.
It just feels good to
That's
know that you were
wonderful.
part of somebody's life in
Mm-hmm.
some small way. So anyway, I started my own company, and I made several movies. I was an executive producer on a movie called No Reservations, starring Catherine Zeta-Jones and Aaron Eckhart. And I made a movie called Beastly, which is also a
Mm-hmm.
book-based movie. It's a modern day retelling of Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
And I worked on a movie um, as an executive producer called Middle School: The Worst Years of My Life, which is a book based project. The
Lots
Duff.
of
I was
book-based projects. I love that.
I was a producer on a movie called The Duff, which was also a book based project by a wonderful author named Cody Keplinger, who actually came to speak at Wilkes the year that we made the movie. And then I formed a company with my current producing partner, Suzanne Farwell, called Resonate Entertainment, and that's my current company, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
producing through them now. We made a movie called Feel the Beat, starring Sophia Carson,
Yes,
uh,
it was
which has been
amazing.
on the Netflix platform. Just prior to Resonate taking shape, we made a movie called Carrie Pilby, starring Belle Powley. I also made a movie for Netflix called Deidre and Lainey Rob a Train, which is, I can only describe it as sort of a youthful in tone, kind of like a Coen Brothers movie. I aspire to be as much like the Coen brothers as possible because are so original. But this is a super original, lower budget movie, but it really has a
Mhm.
beautiful look and feel due to the talents of the director, Sidney Freeland, who's a really interesting filmmaker. And um, and then a couple of years ago during COVID, I went to Australia for 6 months with my junior producing partner, Clement Bauer, and we made a movie called True Spirit, which is
Mhm.
about the unassisted sailboat ride round the world by Jessica Watson, who's an Australian hero. She's the most amazing young person, and she was awarded Australian of the Year. She almost died like 4 or 5 times on her trip around the
That
year.
is
The
crazy.
world
And she just
crazy,
kept going.
kept going no matter what, and that was a very challenging movie to make. It was an
I
action movie,
I can only
actually,
imagine.
and we did it, and it was really fun. And so after that, Um, and the most recent movie is the poster behind me, Sitting in Bars with Kate,
Rosa cake.
which was based on a cookbook that written by Audrey Schulman about her experience with her best friend Chrissy taking
Mhm.
cakes to bars over the period of a year, a commitment that she made. And there's a turn, an unexpected turn, and the story has some similarities to Beaches. In the sense that there's a loss in it, but it's really about female
Yeah.
friendship. I know,
Heartbroken.
mhm. But
Ah,
it was really fun to make that movie and also to watch it evolve and change.
I love their friendship. I loved it so much.
Well, it was they had a general they had and have those two girls, Yara Shahidi and Odessa Azion, who played the two leads, have a
Mhm.
genuine friendship. They're both spectacularly talented, nice human beings,
Are
and
they're real friends in real life, I should
real
say?
they're real friends. And
That's
so
why we
when we did
could really feel that connection. It felt real.
it was real. It
Hmm.
was true. They're both super talented people, but you can't invent, genuine feeling for each
Chemistry
other.
like that. No,
Those two
you
girls
can't.
really care about each other, both
Hmm.
in life and on the screen. So that was a pleasure.
It's
And
beautiful.
we had Bette Midler in that movie too, who is just such a pleasure to deal with. I've made 3 movies with her now, and she's just a genius every time. So
That's just
it's not enough.
amazing.
I need some coffee. It's time for my
Time for
afternoon.
coffee. No, that was amazing. Thank you for giving us like a rundown and an overview of your journey. That's inspiring to know because I'm sure a lot of people wonder what's it like to be a producer and how do you get
Hard.
there. So,
You push you push a lot of boulders up hills, Deborah. It's
hmm,
like it is. It's hard, but when it's fun, it's really really fun. There are some days where you go, I'm really in the movie business. I just
right.
had a meeting.
You still have those moments,
Yeah, all the time. It never gets
really.
old. It never gets old. I mean, there are days that are really hard days when you're slogging through and you're going,
Hmm.
"Oh, I want to forget that I'm in the movie business because this
Like, why
is
am I here?
but there are days that compensate for that that are just so much fun, and you can hardly believe that this is what you do for a living because it's just so much fun telling stories and connecting with people and bringing things to life that
Mhm.
were just words on a page. That's amazing. But you need a lot of coffee to do that,
You need a lot
Deborah.
of coffee.
A
So
lot to
how
do that.
So how is that like on set, for example? Do you guys have like a coffee station where like in every movie sets like, required for how is that
Yes.
like?
Yes. And it's different depending on what country you're in. If
Mm,
you're
true.
making a movie in England, that there's tea time and
First
they
two
have
time.
serious, serious tea. If you're making a movie in Australia, they have some of the British traditions, so there is always really good black tea,
Black
but
tea.
there's always at least one, if not two or three, espresso makers that are in top shape and they
Espresso
never get any
makers
crease.
on set?
Absolutely. And everybody knows how to
Nice.
use them. And Deborah, you have to be really careful with Australians about their coffee. They are such coffee. I mean, they would love your
Yeah.
coffee,
They're,
but they
they're
are
coffee snobs. Yeah. You
coffee
can't
snobs.
just bring any coffee to set,
Do
I'm
not,
sure.
do not an Australian and their coffee. And they Australians have coffee bars throughout Asia or
Mm-hmm.
Australasia because they are known to have, to be the most superb with coffee, or their standards are high, or they've convinced us
Mm-hmm.
all that they are.
That their standards are.
The coffee's
At least
pretty
that's
damn.
what we believe.
Don't ever turn down a cup of coffee if offered to you by an Australian. It's probably going to be
Oh, it's gonna hurt their feelings.
it will hurt their feelings, their pride, their national
Everything
pride.
about them.
And
Their ego.
yes, but you'll probably be passing up a really, really good cup of coffee too.
I
So,
believe
so
that.
on American sets, there's always coffee available. If there's nothing else, the coffee station is available, and I hate to say it, but sometimes it's not very good coffee.
Very good coffee. Yeah.
It's sometimes not great. So then there are secret runs to coffee
To go get
places.
coffee. Hmm.
Yeah,
Secret.
it's secret because the production does not want to have to pay extra for Pete's or Starbucks
Ah.
or whatever special. I mean, if you're in Vancouver, JJ Bean,
Mm-hmm.
whatever coffee place makes better coffee than what is in the
Then what is
coffee
on
tank
set?
at catering. Yeah, and yeah, that's sort of sad. But so you have secret coffee runs and secret coffee funds, and sometimes or you'll pay out extra money of your own just to keep
Just to
people going
go.
with a little extra
So do you
coffee.
do you send like the assistant, or there's like an assigned person
I
that
go
goes and get.
myself,
You go
you know.
yourself. You'll forget
Or
this. I'm going.
if somebody seems really down and tired, I'll offer them coffee. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not proud. I'll do what it takes to get the job done, and often that's coffee.
You gotta
So
do what you
coffee is
gotta do.
Oh, I have to tell you a funny story. So I was traveling in India with Lena, who's going to direct Cowgirls Last Ride, and she has a friend, a very dear friend, who's an Indian movie star. He's a big action star, and he was doing a huge movie at this ancient fort, and he invited us to come in. And there were all these crowds of people around the fort because they knew the movie star was there, and they let us in. And the crowds are so nice there. When they saw that we were getting in, they cheered for us because they thought we were so lucky that
Oh.
we were going to go in. It was really sweet. Go on to the set, and I was like, what is an Indian movie set going to be like? Are they going to have
Mm,
all the things we have on an American movie set, but it'll
right.
through the looking glass, the Indian version? And sure enough, there was. And I immediately wanted to go to Crafty, which is basically the coffee spot.
A coffee spot,
The
like their
place
version
where
of.
you get snacks and where you get your drinks
Okay.
while the movie is shooting, but not during meals. That would be catering. So I go to Crafty, and there's a huge pot over a flame of brewing chai.
Coffee? Oh, chai. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. I was about to say
not
chai.
caffeine,
That
it's
that
sugar,
sounds that makes more sense. Yes,
and
chai.
it smelled so good,
So
and it was
good.
so delicious.
Uh,
And the person who's in charge of keeping the crew going keeps that big pot of chai going. So
how
it's
big
their,
is it? Like.
it's big. It's big. Like, you lived in Texas, a chili pot. It's
Mm-hmm.
like two times that size.
Oh
It's
my god! Wow, I
gigantic.
can only imagine. And I'm
That was
pretty
interesting.
sure must have been good too. Real chai.
It was yummy. It was good. When in India,
Right.
have
Hopefully.
coffee.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love chai. We were actually rolling out some chai this fall at the market, so I'm excited about that. So.
Wait a second. Isn't there a drink called a dirty chai that is espresso in a chai?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so that's a coffee chai
Coffee chai
collaboration.
collaboration. But I'm just gonna do straight chai though. I actually love tea because it's interesting because my mom is the tea person and my dad is the coffee person. So similar to you, I grew up like watching my dad make coffee every morning and then my mom doing her tea. So it's like I inherited the love of both. Of course, coffee more. I think the older I got, the more I started drinking tea, and now I'm really trying to get more into it. So, but I like both. Usually it's like one or the other. I'm special.
It's real. They're both really good for you. I mean,
Hmm.
tea has all kinds of antioxidants in it too. So I'm trying to get a little more into tea. And if I really need caffeine in the afternoon, I'm trying to ramp down by doing the tea.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but really, herbal tea is what I should be doing because I'm so sensitive to the
The
caffeine. But
coffee.
and I
Yeah.
will do decaf too if I must. But
How do you
I
feel
don't
about
know.
decaf? Moment of truth. No judging.
I feel that it evokes a memory of what real coffee is like, so it's
Mm.
kind of nice as a placeholder until you can get back
Until
to the
you can
morning
get,
and have
yeah.
the real coffee. Yeah, I
Hmm.
guess I'm truly addicted. I'm talking like an addict.
Hey, we don't call it addiction here. We call it love and passion and appreciation for coffee. Okay. No addiction here. It's all love.
All love. It's
All love.
love for the bean.
Yes. All right. Well, I think we had a pretty good conversation. I'm going to wrap it up with two more questions, just brief questions. So, going back to your journey, just what advice would you have for young filmmakers or people just wanting to break into film, whether it's just producing or directing or acting, even or writing for films? What advice would you have? Is it networking or building? How do you even build relationships if you don't know anyone, for example?
Well, I didn't know anyone when I came to Los Angeles. I didn't have any family in the business or anything. You just have to do whatever job that you can get that is in the business better than anybody else and make yourself indispensable. And then
Mm,
just make sure you're ready,
yeah.
launch yourself. Don't wait to launch yourself, upon the business until you've got some real samples of your work, whether you're a
Mm,
writer or an actor. Make sure that you have all the tools that you need to be able to truly launch yourself, prepare yourself, be educated about the greater world, be more than just somebody who has a job title as writer and actor. Be a citizen of the world,
yeah. That's good.
understand a bit
Hmm.
about what's going on in the world, and you'll be a better storyteller,
Yeah.
whether you're telling your stories through acting, or you're telling the stories through music, or you're telling the stories through words.
Good advice. Thank you. Last question. If you could have coffee with just one, one person every day of your life until the day you die, who
My
would it be?
life.
Yeah, every day you have to meet with this person for coffee.
Oh,
I
that's
don't even know.
so hard. Why are you doing this to me, Deborah?
I get offended. I can't believe you didn't choose me.
Ay, yay, yay,
Just
yay.
maybe you haven't even met the person, but you're imagining that it could be a
Oh,
great
I'm
experience.
imagining. I have so many people who I wish I could meet, and I wish I could have coffee with. I mean, I can name 20 or 10, but I can't name one. I would love to go back in time and people I've lost along the way, be
Mm.
able to have coffee with them. Have a cup of coffee as a grown up with my grandmother who died when I was 14, or
Oh,
you know
yeah.
ask questions that'll be a mystery to me forever, or even my
Right.
mother who died 4 years ago, and ask her questions that have bubbled up since
Hmm.
she left us. And I'd love to. Well, my father stopped drinking coffee in his old age, so I couldn't have a cup of coffee with him. But, um, a cup of coffee with my friend Randall, who I've known since I'm 10, with my dear friend Lynn, who lives here in Los Angeles, who I'm going to introduce you to, with oh gosh, so many people. There's so many people. And with my work colleagues, Clem and Suzanne, who I adore, it's always fun to have a steaming cup of coffee and sort of
Hmm.
embark on a
Yes.
conversation, start the day with them. And often I do.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
Gosh, you've given me food for thought. I'm going to think about this
You're gonna think
question.
about it more. Well, you've named quite a few people, so that's good. We get a good idea. That's great. So thank you so much. This was really fun. I really learned a lot about what you do and the craziness of film and coffee and the relationship between the two. And I mean, this was just amazing. I really had a good time, and I hope that the listeners will learn something from this. And yeah, I look forward to the next time we chat again.
Me too. I learned so much about you as well, Deborah. I can't wait till we talk again.
This was it for our very first episode of Beans, Brews, and Brains. I hope that you guys take away a lot from this first episode, and I look forward to bringing more content. And we'll see you next time. Bye.